Hi there, welcome to All I Know About Stata Data Management. We have a beginner's course for everyone who is joining. This is lesson 6, and we want to find out what do files do. What do files do? And if you have used Stata, you will realize that that is a popular statement people make. Where are your do files? Where is your do files? Have you edited your do files? Please send your do files. So what exactly are do files? And the terminology can seem so overwhelming for someone who is just what's the word? A fresh or a beginner, fresh person or beginner, just new to Stata. So they're very, very simple fundamental concepts that we need to share. We've already shared the do file editor already, and so we're going to be able to focus more in this session about what they do and practical ways we can engage them. So without wasting much time, the first concept we need to establish here is the concept of task and subtask. So there is a task, which is a main thing, and then there's a subtask, that is sub activities that lead up to the task. So I'm giving an example: clean the living room, and this one is easy because this was how my mother raised me. So please, it may look old school a bit, but that's fine. So whenever you were going to clean the living room, you were asked to switch off the fan, and the whole idea was to clean dust, keep the place very clean. And then when you do that, you were asked to sweep the floor. That was the major task, and then after that, you were asked to dust the furniture. So the main task is keep the living room clean. But to keep the living room clean, these are three things that you needed to do. So there's a main task and then there's a subtask. So I'd established that. Another thing as a child is that I fascinated after a while. Maybe the work got boring, and I think for me, I don't know for everybody, if something becomes so repetitive, I just get real flustered and I walk away. So I started imagining, and those were the days of Voltron and some animation movies, that there should be some robot that could do all this work. Just program it every morning, 5:30 or 6 a.m. do the routine. So the robot would be able to switch off the fan, just imagining, every morning, and then sweep the floor and then dust the furniture. So this can be an analogy for the task too. I'd mentioned that there are different tasks. Now I only picked one where I talked about cleaning the living room, but there is also doing the dishes, and there is also washing the car. In Stata, the analogy to use also is creating the file, checking the file, and cleaning the file. All these ones in themselves are main task. Whether you clean, you check, or you check, you clean, or you create. These are main tasks. So of course, what one is trying to say here is that there are sub activities that are used to get this thing done. So one of them for cleaning the room is switch off the fan, sweep the floor, dust the furniture. In the same way, we have the same thing going on for setting the working directory. When you want to create a file, you open the Stata file, you label the variables and the value sets. We did a bit of that when we were looking at the interface, and we did a little bit of working. So you set a working directory to tell Stata that this is where you need to go and pick your file, and then you open the Stata file, and then you label the variables and the value sets. So just like we have a main task and subtask, so we do have for do files. So if there was a robot cleaning the room and there was an automation going on in Stata, it will look like this. So there were 3 steps, and those 3 steps are now written in the Stata do file. Now, if you look very closely here, this is a create do file that is written here. Create is written here, and you change your directory, you use the data, you label the data. So let's just spend so much time here. We can dwell on this now because this is what do files do. So the main activity or the main task is create, and then there are sub activities which we mentioned. First, set the working directory. We had already mentioned this in detail when we're talking about inputs. So we had mentioned this in detail when we were talking about input. We set the working directory, CD. This shows us where to pick the file from. So that was step 1 or the first subtask. Then the second subtask was to open the file, and that's on line 4. You are saying use raw underscore data clear. That's how you get that done. And then the final thing was basically to label the variables which you find there. So these are the basic steps to help create a file. You import the raw data and then you label the variables. Now, of course, this is very, very basic and simple, but the whole idea is to show you how it works. Now, you can also choose this subtask. You could choose to do subtask 1, 2, and do not do 3. Or you can do 2 and 3 and do not do 1. So you can select the lines when you are doing this. Now, when we go into the practical session, we will show you how that works. Okay, now before I leave, just to establish certain fundamental principles which will greatly help you about Dofiles, let's go on to the concept of reproducibility. Now, very complex tasks or tasks can be automated using Dofiles. Now, you saw about 8 lines in the previous slide, but you can actually have more. There are lines and lines and lines and several lines that you could have, making work easy. When you use Dofiles, you just reproduce the process. And what I mean by that is that I can pick the same file, as long as the same conditions are met, take it to America, it will work. Take it to Europe, it will work. Take it to Australia, it will work, as long as the conditions are the same. So someone can do all the hard work and then push it to somebody else who could just sit down and run them. Another principle you must talk about when you talk about the reproducibility is it may take time to produce a do file. It really does. But it literally runs in seconds. So it may take, what's the word? It may take about a year to build a car, but it can move at 250 miles per hour. So what you are producing can run very fast, but what you are producing that runs very fast sometimes takes time. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. So please bear these 3 things in mind when you think of reproducibility. The whole idea is that I can reproduce and get the same results as long as the same conditions are met anywhere in the world. Now, another thing you must also take note of when you are doing Dofiles, and this is just simple basic logic, is the concept of order. So, like I had mentioned, with my mother, sorry, she had mentioned switch off the fan, sweep the floor, dust the furniture. That is an order. The whole idea is to have a clean living room. Now, and there are reasons why they follow that sequence, because there's dust everywhere. So if you start by dusting the furniture, when you sweep the floor, you pass on the dust. And it's interesting that while you were sweeping the floor, the fan was just circulating the dust. The whole idea of switching off the fan, the proper order, is to make sure that while you are sweeping, the fan, the dust that is raised from the sweeping does not circulate to other parts of the room. And then while you are dusting the furniture after sweeping, is because all the dust that has recirculated are on a surface and it's easier to dust. If you dust before you sweep, it's like you've done nothing, because all the dirt on the floor gets back on the furniture again. So that's why it's the very last thing to do. So the same thing applies to Dofiles. There is a sequence that you must follow. Look at this, for example, the one we just gave. You cannot label files when, or variables, when you have not brought in the data. The data is not in the system. And the data cannot be in the system if you don't tell the do file this is the CD or directory. So you could just rewind a few minutes back, look at what I just said, the sample of the do file. It has to follow a sequence. Otherwise, there will be chaos. To be more correct, there will be errors because it will be looking for a file that has not even been loaded. A file must be loaded before it's labeled, and before a file can be loaded, it must be located. So these are basic principles, and when you start applying it in the practical session, I'm sure you will greatly understand what we're trying to talk about here. So thank you so much for your time. We'll just spend some few minutes looking at the do files in the practical session. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next in the class, in the practical session shortly. Thank you. So hi there, welcome to the practical session for the do file editor. We're still on lesson 6, where we asked what do files do. So you cannot even activate the the do file editor without first seeing the main window. So we're going to start again, just like we did for data editor. We started from the main window to data editor. We're going to start from the main window and go to the do file editor, and we'll see how they all connect in some way. So you need to have given it some sort of instructions, which I will do now. So I will press Control 9. Now, sometimes when you do that, I have pressed Control 9, you need to go to your taskbar and check, which I'm doing now. Sorry, Control 9. Yeah. So the do file editor will come up, and I want to split my screen into two. There's one half here and the other half here. So the idea is to look at how they all relate. Now, whatever you type in your do file editor and run will display in the main window. I told you everything you do, there is a record in history. So I will start with sysuse. Sorry, I think I need to start with clear first. So clear, that's the first thing. Now you can put in a line and a space. After you have cleared, now I want to load the auto data, which comes with every Stata file. And then I want to browse to see it in spreadsheet form. So these are the 3 tasks I want to undertake. I'll just save this file right now to do file practice under Stata stage. Yeah, I had one before, so I'm just overwriting it. Okay, so if I clicked on clear, it will not really make much thing because there was nothing to clear, but it will clear nothing. But now I select sysuse auto and clear, so it now loads the file. Before now, there were no variables. All the 12 variables, I guess, they're 12. Yeah, 12 variables for sysuse auto have been loaded. Now, if I want to see all this in the do file editor from my, in the data editor, from my do file editor, I can run it using the command browse. I will clear first, sys auto, and then browse. So this is it. Now I said this is reproducible. The concept of reproducibility. Please pardon my English. So all it's just saying is, wherever you are watching me in the world right now, if you follow these principles, I gave a condition and a caveat. I said once the conditions are met. Now, sysuse auto comes by default with every Stata file. So, because the conditions are met, if you run these 3 lines in the same way I designed it, you will get my exact same result. That means it will clear, it will do a sysuse, bring in the auto file, and it will now browse, which you have seen here. The do file editor is still here. And if you go and check, yours and mine should have 12 variables each and 74 observations. So I would advise you to pause the video for a while and also practice for yourself. Okay, so let's take it a top notch higher, level higher. So I want to use the use command. You know, there's sysuse and there's use. So, but to use the use command, I need to tell Stata where the file can be found. Remember, cd, cd, cd. We've mentioned that quite a number of times. So we're going to do that. And you see, I can insert another step because after I clear, I need to tell the computer where to get the files. Now, these are interchangeable. I could tell the computer where to get the files and I can use clear. So 1 and 3 are interchangeable. So if I said, so what I always advise is you could go and copy the file path. I think it's C and then Stata Sage. I hope I am correct. So CD. So the first thing is clear and then change the directory to C Stata. You see, I made a mistake here. Stata. So that's Sage. So there's a folder called Stata Sage, which is in my C drive. Now I tried to make it C drive because it's easy for everybody using Windows to be able to recognize that folder and just drop something there. But if you know where you have downloaded the practice files to, just refer to it now in line 3. Okay, let's see how this goes. So it says unable to change to C. Sorry, I think I left something very vital. I hope I'm correct now. Good. So I left the column for C. So this is the address. And you can look below now here, around here, you'd find that that has happened. If you have that folder, now I mentioned for caveat, as long as there's a folder called Stata Sage in C drive, a subfolder or a folder called Stata Sage, you should not have a problem. So if I said cd Stata Stage 2, I know I don't have such files in my C drive. So let me quickly, just a minute, open a new folder and then go to the C drive quickly. So there's a folder called Stata Sage. You can see it there. Now, if I had to come back here and say I was doing Stata Sage 2, which does not exist, when I run the do file, to say unable to change to Stata Sage 2, because there's no folder like that. So you find some difficulty when you are working because that folder does not exist. So even though the do file works with logic, it works with logic that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to change to a directory that never existed. So just to put that out there. So I also mentioned the concept of order. Let me probably change to something else. Let's look for another folder just to illustrate what I'm about to say. So let's say program files is a folder, or users. Let me use users. So if I say C users, that folder exists. Now when I do that here, sorry, the default shows down here. I keep emphasizing that for directory change. Anytime you change directory successfully, you find it at the lower left corner of the main window. Okay, but the challenge is that under the folder users, you cannot find any file called auto. So there is a challenge accessing any file called auto. So if I decide, to run now, so let me correct it and take it back to Stata. Sage. Um, Now, if I decide just to run use auto without changing directly back to Stata Sage, that's what I'm talking about, the law and concept of order, I would have a problem. So it says file auto DTA cannot be found, and it's because there's no file like that in C users. But if I had selected all three lines sequentially, so it will clear, after clearing to do CD, after CD to do the use command, I will not have any problem. So let's run it now. So easy squeezy. We have been able to get the file here. So that's how it works. And I'm also able to browse. So there is some sense of order in everything that we do with Dofiles. So you need to be sure that things are logically correct. So if I go back to what it was again, I say user, I think, or users. Let's do that again. So it converts. So if I take use auto and place it in between clear, so I'm saying clear, which is fine, which is usually the best first step. Then, or let me even do it the other way around. Yeah, it's fine. So because I've already been cleared. So if I say clear, then I say use auto, and then I do CD. Now I have changed the sequence, and it may give me what we call an error. So let's try it. Now I select all three, and then I try to run. Now it stops at line 3 because you cleared, but after clearing, you did not specify the folder that it should go to. And if you look at it, the default folder is C colon users. So it's not going to work. So the best thing to do to make it effective always is to have the CD here and then Stata Sage. So there are steps to be followed. Stata Sage. There are steps to be followed. When you follow the orders and sequence, sometimes there are rules that can be broken. Then you will get your desired results. So basically, this is how Dofiles work. When we do the overall practice section, we will tie some of the concepts we have heard from there, but I just want to zero down on the fundamentals of how a Dofile works. The goal also is to give you sometimes give you some exercises to do. So, and then some of them will be after the module, some of them will be between lessons, but we'll let you know when you are supposed to do these things. Okay, so I hope this has been useful. Remember what we mentioned, the order is very important. What you write and what you are referencing, very, very important. We are definitely going to go into deeper waters with these Dofiles, but the fundamental principles of order and the ability for the file to be reproduced, we must embrace. Some of these things can move to your friend's system, try it out, exactly. But if you don't have, I keep putting that caveat there, if you don't have a subfolder called Stata Sage, you can't work. So create another subfolder, call it your name, put the auto file in it, and then watch magic. So the principles are the same everywhere, and that's really the beauty of the do file. If I give you this do file and you take it and create a subfolder called Stata Sage in the C drive, also adding the file there, it will run. It will run. So you can reproduce. So I hope this has been very useful. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments. Please let's know how we can help and be of support. If you have a challenge at work or have a challenge with some of your files, really chaotic and problematic, that's exactly why I'm here. So just reach out to me. I'm sure we'll try and produce some links beneath the video where you can reach out to me. But if you also reach out to me directly in the comments, I will get in touch with you. So let me know if you have any challenges with this. So thank you so much for your time. I will see you in the next lesson.